What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And for the second straight day, I'm going to be making a free agency video on potential additions that the Kansas City Chiefs could make in free agency, but this time at the defensive end position. We just saw the Kansas City Chiefs release longtime starting defensive end Frank Clark prior to this offseason. That move saved them about $20 million in cap space. The Chiefs tried to work something out with Frank Clark and his agent, and they couldn't come to an agreement. And if you just look at the way that the Chiefs have talked about Frank Clark and the way, Brett Veach and Andy Reid both released a statement after Frank Clark got cut. The team had like a farewell Frank Clark video and stuff. So it's not impossible that Frank Clark comes back, but when you just kind of read the way and analyze the way that the team is talking about him, it seems like this is the end of Frank Clark and the Chiefs are going to be going in a different direction. But luckily for the Chiefs, this year's veteran defensive end free agent market is loaded with talented players that might not cost very much. And with the Kansas City Chiefs moving on from Frank Clark, it gives them the opportunity to upgrade from Frank Clark. Say whatever you want about Frank Clark when it comes to his playoff performance or his locker room leadership or whatever. The fact of the matter was the Kansas City Chiefs were paying him far too much money to be an average player. And to act like the regular season games don't count is just foolish. Yeah, Clark, he can show up in the playoffs, and a lot of fans are okay with that. If he doesn't play well in the regular season but shows up in the playoffs. I would like a guy that produces year-round and a guy that actually produces up to the price tag. Not to mention, Carlos Dunlap is also a free agent who was a veteran that played for the Chiefs last year after they signed him to a one-year deal. He played a lot of snaps for the Chiefs in their defensive end rotation. There's also a chance that he doesn't come back. I also think there's a strong chance that he retires. So you guys get the gist. The Chiefs are going to be in the hunt for a veteran defensive end in free agency in all likelihood. So without further ado, here are 4 potential free agent signings that I would like to see the Chiefs make to try and upgrade their pass rush. Let's start with a little bit more of a higher-end option, but still somebody that may not cost a ton, and that is Rams defensive end Leonard Floyd, who Los Angeles is expected to release prior to free agency. In 2022, Leonard Floyd had 59 combined tackles and 9 sacks with the Los Angeles Rams. He was also a big part of their Super Bowl run in Super Bowl 56 last year, and he is a guy that would bring an element to the Chiefs that we haven't seen in quite a bit. We know the Spags threshold. That's bigger guys that play very strong, aren't super bendy, win with power a lot. They're long and stout, but maybe a little stiff. Leonard Floyd is more of your speed rusher. A guy like the Chiefs had when they brought in Melvin Ingram. Like Melvin Ingram was a little bit more of that type, but he was still on the older side and still not super athletic, especially bringing him in at like 32 years old. Leonard Floyd would be a really interesting option. He might cost a little bit of money. He might have a little bit more of a competitive market than I even think. But this is a guy that had basically, double-digit sacks the last 3 seasons. He's still a productive player. He's not necessarily on the downside of his career quite yet. He's a speed guy that you could have opposite of George Karlaftis, brings a little bit of a different element, can bend around the edge, has that fluid athleticism, a guy that could run under a table at full speed. He has that sort of athleticism. So he wins in a different way than George Karlaftis, and he could be your fastball, essentially. Floyd was making about $16 million per year with Los Angeles, which is very expensive, but he's 30 years old now. I think you could potentially sell him on the idea of signing with Kansas City for a couple of years, maybe at like $10 million per year, something like that. And he could come here and win a Super Bowl and be a big part of your pass rush. I would like to see him come to the Kansas City Chiefs. He'd be like my number 1 option. It would be a very exciting addition. I don't think it's very likely, and he's not necessarily a high team fit, not necessarily a Spags guy, but I drool over the idea of the Chiefs adding Leonard Floyd to their pass rush. Next suggestion I got, and a guy that I've seen linked to the Chiefs a couple times, that's Jaguars defensive end Arden Key. Now, I know what most Chiefs fans are thinking when they hear this. No, hell no. He's the guy who injured Mahomes in the AFC divisional round. Some people thought it was a dirty play. I can't say definitively whether or not it was a dirty play. And I know it's a bad look on Arden Key, but look, he's a good football player. And this was a guy that the Chiefs brought in on a free agent visit last year. So there's a history there of the Chiefs having interest. And he's become a productive player over the last few years. You know, in 2021 with the 49ers, had 6.5 sacks. And then went to the Jaguars this year on a one-year deal, had another 4.5 sacks. But what makes Arden Key special in a way is he's a guy that came into the league mainly as a defensive end, but the 49ers started giving him snaps at defensive tackle. He became pretty disruptive, and we know that the Kansas City Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo absolutely love to move guys inside and out. They love to have versatility along their line. Arden Key is the definition of versatility. He can play inside and out. He can come in, play next to Chris Jones, a defensive tackle, give you good pass rushing snaps. He can play the run fairly well and gives you snaps at defensive end. He can kind of kill two birds with one stone because of his versatility. I don't think he would cost that much. He will have an interesting market. I think there will be multiple teams in on him. But I think it would be an ideal signing for the Chiefs if they could get something done with Arden Key. So he's one of my suggestions, someone that I would look for the Kansas City Chiefs to sign in free agency. Next suggestion I got, and another guy who I've seen linked to the Chiefs in recent weeks, is New Orleans Saints defensive end Marcus Davenport. Davenport is very interesting because he is still relatively young, only 26 years old. He just came off a contract season with the Saints in which he only had half a sack. So he had very underwhelming numbers this year. Now, in the end, pressures are king, right? Pressure is what matters more than sacks most of the time. But at a certain point, sacks do somewhat matter. And when you only have half a sack over the entire season, that's a little bit of a concern. That being said, Davenport had 9 sacks in 2021. He's had production in the past. He has 21.5 sacks over his career, and he's still a relatively young player. Additionally, Davenport does fit the Spags threshold, 6'6", 270 pounds, around there. It's a pretty big guy, pretty big and strong. And Davenport also was part of a Saints defense that was one of the best rushing defenses in the NFL this past season and has been actually over the last few years. So he brings some edge-setting potential. But his market could be way down from what he thought it might have been because he had such a poor year when it came to rushing the passer. So this could be a guy that the Chiefs could buy low on, and they could also add a rookie to the mix in the draft. And you'd have a pretty nice defensive end group with George Karlaftis, Marcus Davenport, a rookie, Mike Dana. Like, that's solid. And then, you know, in the scenario that Davenport gets back to his better form and he gives you like 5 or 6 sacks next year, that's perfect. If he's not asking for too much, this could be a really good cheap signing for the Kansas City Chiefs. I would look out for Marcus Davenport. All right, now my final and favorite suggestion for who the Kansas City Chiefs could go after in free agency to address the defensive end position is Zadarius Smith of the Minnesota Vikings. Zadarius Smith just requested a release from the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings say that they don't want it to happen, but ultimately we know how these things end. Zadarius Smith is not going to be a Viking. He's also been flirting with the Chiefs on Twitter. He tweeted some eyeball emojis at Patrick Mahomes, and he was liking tweets from Marquez Valdes-Scantling about coming to the Chiefs and all that stuff. And this is a guy that I wanted last year, and I thought he would have been a great addition. And then the Kansas City Chiefs went ahead and restructured Frank Clark, so they kind of moved on from Zadarius Smith. But it was revealed by several reporters that the Kansas City Chiefs were very interested in Zadarius Smith, and it sounded like there was mutual interest. Now, there was concerns last year with Zadarius Smith's free agency because he had a back injury that he was coming off of with the Green Bay Packers that kind of scared some people off, I think, and scared teams from giving him more money than he actually probably deserved. Well, he went out there, proved that the back was not an issue, had 9 sacks this past season, and I definitely think he wouldn't cost that much this time around either. And he's probably a guy that's looking to play for a contender like the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, he's been flirting with the Chiefs on Twitter. This is a signing that I would absolutely love. He would be a short-term veteran stopgap, but he's a guy that is very dangerous and a very good player. He'd be a really ideal player to have on the other side of the line, opposite of George Karlaftis. I think he could take advantage of playing next to Chris Jones. I would absolutely love this signing if the Chiefs could pull it off. I think it should have happened last year, and he'd be an ideal Frank Clark replacement. So yeah, guys, there you have it. Those are my 4 favorite potential free agency additions at defensive end. But as always, I would love to hear from you guys who you think that the Kansas City Chiefs should go after to try and fix their pass rush. Or not fix their pass rush, but improve their pass rush and fill the defensive end need. I know there's a lot of guys out there that I didn't mention that I'm sure Chiefs fans like, and that's why I'm asking you guys. Let me know who you think we should get in the comments, or if you agree with any of the picks that I made in my video. But all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And I will see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs!